Welcome back, Brotagonists. I'm your bro host, Carter.
I'm your bro host, Mason. Welcome back. If you're joining us today from YouTube or Spotify or from Apple Podcast, welcome. We're so glad you're here, and we have a really fun episode for you today. Today's episode is very Asian inspired. We chose our book for our protagonist book breakdown, which is Babel by R.F. Kwang. And it's a great book. And we were trying to come up with what game is what Watchtower reviews. What really fit in best was to do some Asian fantasy inspired topics for us today. So after we talk about Babel, we're going to go into a book recommendations from Mason and Carter that are also Asian inspired books that are in the realm of fantasy sci-fi, maybe kind of loosely, but just great books that would be amazing for anyone to read. After that, we're going to do an Asian food bracket here on the Protagonist podcast. The first time we've ever done something like this. And after that, we will move on to our Watchtower review, where we'll be reviewing Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, which in my opinion is the best movie that's been in Marvel Phase 4. And Carter will send us away with a weapon of wisdom. And I'm just so excited for today because having lived in Asia for a couple of years, I love the Asian culture, love the Asian people, love the Asian food. And I'm just so excited to dive deep into this.
For those that don't know on here, Mason lived in Taiwan for 2 years and knows much more about Asian culture than I do. So he's going to be a valuable person to have on this episode. But yes, very excited about Babel today. But before we get into that, what are you reading right now, Mason?
So I am still reading Howling Dark, which is book 2 of The Sun Eater. I'm a little over halfway done, which is a big accomplishment. It is a thick book. There's a lot of words on each page. I have just had a little bit going on recently between trying to find apartments and finishing up school and being a little bit lazy. Also, we watched, not finally, but it finally came out today that Maul has been released, and I've been watching the first 2 episodes today. And so far, it's been really good. It's a lot of plot building. I'm excited to see where it goes.
You've already watched Maul?
I watched the first episode and a half.
How many released?
2. There's so far been 2 released.
And I'm assuming it's going to be like 1 every week.
I think it's going to be 2 every week for 5 weeks or so. I think they want it to end on May the 4th.
Clever. I have to get started then. I'm going back to my childhood, and I'm reading through 11 Thumps and the Gateway to Fu. There's 5 books. So I'm on the 3rd book, the Eyes of Want or something like that. But nobody on this podcast will read those books, so I'm not going to say anything about them. But it's just for my pure nostalgia. And then I'm going to move on to Dungeon Crawler Carl. So by the end of this week, I'll be reading Dungeon Crawler Carl.
How long are those books?
They're like 300 pages.
Okay, it's not too bad.
Yeah, they're like 10 to 12 hours on Audible.
I'm excited for you to get into Dungeon Crawler Carl. I've had it recommended to me by a few people, but part of me is not wanting to undertake the task because it's not done yet, and I've heard it's supposed to be like 20 books total when it's all said and done.
Whoa, that's more than I heard. I heard 10 books, but maybe there's like different arcs. So maybe a 10-book arc and a 10-book arc, but I have no idea.
I haven't really looked into it, but I've heard people say it's supposed to be huge and the books are thick.
I've just had a couple friends tell me that I need to read it, so I'm going to do it. And you told me to do it last week, so that's what I'm going to do.
We need to get there.
Yeah. And there's so many people that like all the books that we've read that I have seen online that have that as one of the books. And I'm like, okay, you've read Sun Eater, you've read Stormlight, you've read Mistborn, you've read Sword of Kai, you read all this stuff, and also you read Dungeon Crawler Carl. So I know it's like in our wheelhouse, and I think we'll like it, but I also know it's a genre that we aren't familiar with. It's a lit RPG.
It's in our genre, but it's a niche within the genre.
Yeah. From what I can tell, it's like a Ready Player One meets Jumanji.
That's kind of what I've heard as well. It's almost like it's like Dungeons and Dragons mixed with Jumanji into a book.
That brings us to our book breakdown of Babel by R.F. Kwang. And if I mispronounce any Asian words, Mason will have to correct me.
I'll do my best. I'm wearing my Chinese writing shirt today. It says Shui Dao Fun Show, which is a song that means handsome until you break up.
I knew It said handsome something, but I didn't know the rest. I still have a couple of your Mandarin rap songs that you put on my phone in college that pop up every once in a while. Hey,
Love it.
they're pretty good. Anyway, Babel by R.F. Kwang. This is uh, a book that I saw everywhere like a couple years ago. And I thought there's a magic system that has to do with languages. There's, dark academia vibes. This is going to be awesome. I think you and I are going to have different feelings about this book. And I think that's why it's going to be such a great segment. But I love languages, as I know you love languages. I speak three and a half, and I'm trying to get to Italian. I'm like, I can understand it, but I'm trying. I mean, I'm on a almost 1,000-day Duolingo streak for Italian. Not that Duolingo is like the way to learn a language, but when I was in Guatemala, I learned Spanish and Quechua, and I don't even think all three of those extra languages are put together are as hard as you having to learn Mandarin.
Mandarin is something that's very extremely hard to learn, but easy to master because the grammar rules are not super strict and there's no conjugations. So you just have to state the time at which like something happened, which seems a little bit redundant, but when you're speaking the language, it just flows really well. And but learning the pronunciation, the reading, the sounds, the tones, even now, well, it's been a while since I've spoken Mandarin consistently, so my tones are all over the place. And but when I was speaking it all the time, it was still hard for me, someone who had lived in Taiwan for 2 years and was getting a minor in it and had people that I was speaking with every single day to have everything right as far as pronunciation and tones.
Still, I gotta
Still
say.
trying to learn Spanish. That one's been hard.
You'll get it. You'll get it. I mean, you're going to be living with a fluent speaker for the rest of your life, ideally.
Yeah, her English is so good. I just get lazy and use that.
Yeah. Well, it's better if you don't learn it, and then me and her can just talk about you behind your back.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the synopsis of the book so people know what the heck we're talking about. Babel is an alternate history, dark academia novel set in the 1830s Oxford, where the British Empire's global dominance is powered by magic, specifically the lost meaning between languages. We follow Robin Swift, a Chinese orphan brought to England and trained in translation at Oxford's Royal Institute of Translation, nicknamed Babel. As he rises through this elite institution, he begins to realize that the very magic he's mastering is also fueling colonialism, exploitation, and empire. At its core, this is a story about language, power, identity, and the moral cost of success within a broken system. How do you think that synopsis holds up?
I think it's pretty good. It's a good starter to get you into it. There's a father son subplot. There's an overall big plot. There's the getting through school at Oxford. There's so many different, I don't want to say storylines because it's all the same character, but so many events going on for Robin that he is just going through a lot of things and growing and changing while he's trying to.
Yeah. What would be like your elevator pitch for somebody to read this book or not to read this book? But if you had the person that you knew would kind of like this book, how would you pitch it to them?
If you want a story that reflects and dives deep into the power of language and words, this is the book for you. If you're looking for a niche historical fiction that's been adapted a lot and has its own premise to it outside of history, but within history itself, and to dive into the power of language and the change of meaning within each language, this is a thinker and a deep dive into a whole new realm of fantasy.
I'm going to share what I think this novel does really well. And by getting into this novel, it's not a big commitment. It's just one book, standalone, which I love finding a standalone to suggest to people. This book's only a little over 500 pages. So it's doable, not a big commitment. And I think it'll be one that's around for a long time. What I liked about this was that the magic system is brilliant. It is subtle. Don't get me wrong, it's subtle. There's not a lot of consequence to the magic exactly, but the magic system is really cool. It's translation-based magic, and I think very original in modern fantasy. So the idea that meaning is lost between languages and that gap creates power is insanely clever. That has to be in the book, it has to be written into silver bars. The word on one side has to be, say it's English, and the other side of the bar of silver needs to be a different language. The loss of meaning in the translation process of those two words gives the bar of silver power. How would you describe the magic system?
I think you described it perfectly.
That pretty
Just
good?
and then you need to use the language and kind of use it like a wand almost to get the magic to work from it.
Yeah. Well, something clever, somebody that intimately knows both languages is the only one that can activate the power. So that's why Robin Swift is so valuable to the Translation Academy, is because he intimately knows Mandarin and English. And so there's like such a shortage of people in the translation system that know Mandarin so well. And he knows Cantonese, or he knows a couple
I think you do like
languages.
4 or 5 languages, yeah.
Yeah. And so his is very valuable because, as you could probably attest to, there's so much lost in translation between English and Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever, as opposed to other languages.
Yeah, I think it's especially true in many of the Asian languages, whether it's Mandarin, Cantonese, Thai, Korean, Japanese, is that because the cultures are so different, the language is also different. And there's a lot of times when I'd be translating for people and I'd have to say, "All right, just pause. I need to figure out how to actually get this as close as I possibly can to what they're saying." And it's very difficult, and I'm sure you can agree in Spanish is there's some words that just don't translate perfectly, and there's not an equivalent, and sometimes in the way you translate things changes the meaning just a little bit that gives you a different perspective on things.
Yeah. And language is so cool. I love that it brought these two worlds together, that I love fantasy and language. Although it is, this book is barely a fantasy. It really is more of a historical fiction. But the kind of that added magical element, I feel like, attracted a lot of readers that normally wouldn't read this book.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a historical fantasy because it's not taking real life events, but it is taking kind of a setting in history and adding some, changing some things actually in history, and then putting in the fantasy story. So, historical setting, fantasy story.
I have never been to Oxford, but I do want to. But the dark academia vibes I thought were cool. It kind of tickles like the Harry Potter itch, but just tickles it. It doesn't totally satisfy the itch, but it does. It's fun because it pulls you back to that kind of architecture and things like that. But the Oxford setting it's rich, it's immersive, and you get libraries, you get secret societies, academic pressure, all that stuff. I enjoyed the setting, but I do have some critiques. But before we go there, do you have anything you want to talk about with characters or themes in the book that you liked?
Well, just kinda add what you said to the, dark university theme. I really liked how it dove into the university a little bit. It kinda reminded me of our days at university, how only the people at Oxford that are studying language for this specific purpose are invited into the tower called Babel, which is their kind of the language building of the university, and all the other students call the uh, these language study students babblers. I kind of like how they showed there's a little bit of a rivalry or like discontentment amongst the different groups that were at Oxford, because I remember being in college and being a biomedical sciences student and kind of looking down my nose at other degrees, just like, oh, what are you studying social work? Do they just hand you the 4.0 and the academic scholarship, or the business people that always had more fun time than we did?
Yeah, you saw me coming out of the business building, like ready to go to the beach.
And I'd be, oh, I'm gonna go study for another 10 hours, but it's jokes on me that I was the stupid one making a stupid decision. But it I think there is always kind of a light rivalry between, different students that are different schools within the same university, different majors, and which one's better, who's smarter, who's treated better, who's gonna have the better career, but it's always light. But it seems like in this book, it was a little bit more intense, but it's also Oxford, which is a whole level above me, so
Yes, definitely. Characters, their relationships. There's a lot of relationship building between the friends in this book, and it all just is so tragic and real in the best way at the end. And there's just tension between different loyalties and ideology in the friend group. And I think there's something to be studied within those relationships, but and a lot more to say about them. But I'm kind of drawing a blank on the particulars. But I remember enjoying the relationship work and kind of seeing, you know, the tension between the loyalty and ideology differences.
yeah, I think so too, where they have, especially at the language in Babel, they have people from all over the world that could speak different languages and with different backgrounds and thoughts and ideas. And I personally did not like Robin very much. I thought he was a whiny little prick. And so I maybe that's why I probably ranked the book lower than you because I didn't like Robin very much. But the friendships were definitely interesting to look at. Letty is from a different background than her 3 friends, and she just can't see the world in which they see it, and what's a reality for her is not a reality for them. And seeing, like, how they can never see eye to eye on how they should handle a problem just, like, shows, like, how your background can really just change your point of view, whether you're right or wrong, that what's possible in your mind is completely impossible in someone else's mind.
Yeah, the way they saw the world was completely different. And sometimes it's a hard obstacle to overcome when you're trying to become friends with somebody. But going back to Robin, I think Robin is intentionally frustrating, and that's the point. His passivity and internal conflict, I think they're trying to mirror kind of what it's like to benefit from the system that he morally opposes. And I think the character is written to annoy us on purpose, and the characters around him, all their different ideologies and stuff. I think each one of them you're supposed to connect with whoever you more agree with. But I wasn't in love with the main character either, but I thought because he was so passive, he was able to kind of see and observe other people's ideologies and stuff like that clearly in a way
Yeah.
that we could understand it.
You know, I completely forgot that Robin has a brother in this book, Griffin, who
Griffin.
yeah, I just forget about all the different relationships and people that he surrounds himself with. It's a lot of deep dive into these relationships with his father who won't acknowledge him as a son, with his brother, the rebel, his friends with all different walks of life, and them also just their relationship in the world. How do they fit into the world? And then how does England, the superpower of the world at the time, relate to its neighbors?
Yeah. So tying into some critiques I have of the book. Overall, I like this book, but I do have a couple critiques. And so starting with the themes, the themes are good. They're good themes. You know, colonialism, language, identity, belonging. The book is saying something. The problem is it just doesn't hint at issues, really confronts them head on. And I think it can feel heavy-handed. The message is not subtle. It doesn't kind of trust the reader to form their own opinion of like what's going on.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of author bias in a lot of the conflicts.
At times, it feels like the author is pausing the story to make a point. And some readers will love that clarity, but others may feel preached to. And that's kind of how I felt a little bit. I don't know if they trusted the reader enough. What do you think?
I would agree. I definitely feel that this book didn't leave anything up to interpretation where you were going to know exactly what the author was thinking and feeling, and that if you don't think and feel the same way, then you're just wrong.
The pacing, too, on my next point, the pacing. There's a stretch where the plot slows down significantly and it focuses more on the academic life and less on the forward momentum. But the focus on the academic life is fun and nostalgic for us who have, you know, well, I guess you're still in school, but for me, who'd been out of school for a little bit, but you have to be prepared for the pacing to kind of slow down. And I think that's where it loses a lot of people. And the characters, sometimes I feel like they're just vehicles for themes instead of just fully independent people. They're just like a cookie cutter of this type of thought process.
Yeah, it does, and just to touch on the pacing, that's my biggest critique and why I rated it a decent rating, but not overly high, was I thought it was just a little bit boring, where you could say the writing was great, the theme was great, the plot was overall secure, there was some author bias in there, the relationships that had good depth to them, the protagonist was annoying but well written. But at the same time, I'm not really feeling like I'm really caring to know what's next. I'm not deep into this plot. I'm not in the drama. I'm just kind of here for okay. It just feels like you're finishing school almost. It's all right, let's get there. Let's move to the next thing. What's next? You get a little bit of excitement about getting your next job, and then all of a sudden it's boring again. Like, all right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. I've gotta say the first half of the book I enjoyed more than the second half of the book because I thought it had so much potential to kind of go somewhere go in a different direction because the beginning I thought was cool. You get to see all these glimpses into Robin's life in China, and I like the part where they go back to China, to Canton, and I loved all that part, and I loved learning about the languages, the magic system, but then at the end where he just becomes this revolutionist almost it wasn't really where I thought it was heading. And I thought it was gonna be more of an epic conclusion, I guess.
I agree with you where this wasn't where I saw it going, but it still was a solid book. I was still entertained, and I did love the Chinese language in there, and the difficulty in translation and the lost meanings, I think is really a cool concept to look into, especially in my relationship where with my fiance, where her first language isn't English. And so when I say something and she translates it in her head and it doesn't make sense or it doesn't have the meaning that I'm wanting it to have, then it takes a deeper dive.
Spanish is so funny because there's so many things that don't translate, like, obviously, there's a lot more things in Mandarin that don't translate to English, but in Spanish, it's funny because there's so many words that are similar that you think things are gonna translate more exact, but there's so many there's so much slang in both English and Spanish that saying one thing and translating it exactly to the other language can make it sound so, like, inappropriate
Yeah,
for
I'm sure I'll have a couple of mix-ups in my lifetime, but I think it's just like a really cool concept to look into that I've never really seen in a fantasy book before. And I really do think that language has power. And I remember reading things in English and then reading the translation in Mandarin. And I'm like, I kind of like the Mandarin better. Or some of the Mandarin songs I've made you listen to. I was like I can translate it for you, but it's just not the same. It doesn't hit the same.
yeah. And final thoughts on this book. It's bold, it's intellectual, it's intentional, and it uses a fantasy lens to examine real world problems or themes, I guess you could say. But if you're looking for something thought provoking, this is thought provoking. It's just that it does sometimes the author does kind of force you to look at it a certain way. But unique magic system, strong thematic depth. I think it's worth your time, especially if you just want to branch out of that mainstream fantasy. It's a good standalone, so you're not really committed to anything deep. And I gotta say though, if you want a fast-paced plot and subtle messaging, this is not it.
If I were to recommend this book to any group of people, I don't know if it's for every single person out there. I do feel a lot of people might get bored in this book. But for those that are career academics, people that have done a lot of school, and people that are bilingual, I think would get a lot of joy out of reading this book the way I did. And especially because the main character is half Chinese, half English, that it has that kind of more heavy on the Mandarin and Cantonese part that if you speak either one of those languages, I think it hits a little bit deeper with you as well. So now that brings us to ranking this book, giving it an official protagonist ranking. I think mine's a lot lower than yours, so I'm curious to hear what did you rank this book, Carter?
I ranked it an 8.1.
That is a lot higher than I ranked it.
Okay.
I ranked this a 7.2.
Oh, all right. The more we talked about it, the more I thought back. I can head that direction a little bit. Goodreads has this book at a 8.3 for reference.
So maybe Carter and I just have, as people that are into high fantasy and sci-fi, we're used to a lot more action. Maybe this is a bias in us to wanting to rank it a little lower than what's on Goodreads.
But we're the protagonists, and this is the official protagonist ranking.
That's true. I guess, where does it rank compared to The Martian?
What did we rank Eye of the World?
We ranked that a 7,
And what did we rank The Martian?
7.5.
7.5. Oh, probably around there. Probably like a 7.6, 7. So probably 7.7.
I could do a 7.7. I think a 7.7 is a pretty good score for this book.
Yeah, I'm right there at a 7.7, 7.6 even, but I like 7.7 because I think there's a lot more to appreciate in the book than we have given it credit for.
Yeah, no, like you said, the relationships are good, the language is good, there's a lot of good things in this book. It's just not a high-paced, action-packed book that we love to read.
There's so much in the Tower of Babel that I wanted to get into that they just kind of scratch the surface, and it's just, oh, that's so cool. Making the silver bars and the engraving and all that stuff is so
And
cool.
all the traps they have set there.
Yes. Yes.
They use their magic to create booby traps and everything for, people that try to come in and steal from them.
Yes. So I agree. I agree at a 7.7. The official Brotagonists ranking for Babel, standalone novel by R.F. Kwang, is 7.7. We think you should read this book if you agree with the things we said.
Again, we would recommend this to someone that's bilingual or someone that's been at university for a really long time. I think you get a lot of appreciation out of it.
And if you liked Harry Potter as a kid, I mean, it does scratch the itch a little bit. Just it's not as epic as Harry Potter, obviously. It's a standalone.
So that brings us to our next section here where we're going to be recommending and giving a brief synopsis of some of these Asian inspired books and series that we would like to recommend. As Robin was the main character of Babel. He was born in China and he spoke Mandarin and Cantonese. And we just thought it would be a really fun theme to do kind of a Asian inspired episode. And I brought with me my Mandarin copy of Lord of the Rings. I have all 3 books in Mandarin, which is, just, like, a fun thing to have. I saw that when I was in Taiwan, and I was like, "I need to spend whatever amount of money possible to get these books," and they're in my book collection. But, Carter, do you wanna start, or you want me to start any of these, Asian-inspired books that we would like to talk about?
That's great. No, I right off the bat, I was just going to mention. Sorry, I can't stop thinking about your cool set of Lord of the Rings. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen that before. I was going to mention the Sword of Kaigen because we've already talked about it in a previous episode. This book we rated 9 point something.
It was 9 flat, we ranked Sword of Kaigen. Tied for their highest ranking ever on the Protagonist podcast.
Yes, the Sword of Kaigen is a Japanese-inspired war story that we did a full episode on, and we could not recommend it more. It is just in its own league. Like it it's so different from anything that you could read. Um, and a very emotional book. If you want to feel feelings, read this book. If you want some awesome action with some elemental magic, very cool book to read. I think I already want to reread it, and I only read it like a year and a half or 2 ago. So, The Sword of Kaigen, that is by ML Wong, and that's a recommend for me. I couldn't say enough good things about this book, and I have a couple more to mention, but I'll go to you.
I'm just gonna reemphasize, I love The Sword of Kaigen. It might be my favorite standalone book ever. It's up there. It's super good. Great recommendation. The first I'm going to recommend is Dream of the Red Chamber by Cao Shuiqing, or Hong Lo Mong for my Mandarin speakers out there. This is not a fantasy. This is of the Chinese version of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, but much older. There's about 5 of these books that are all part of the same story. It's kind of a dramatic romance book with cultural family implications, and it goes into this whole family and all their problems and all these big things going on in their lives. It's like a drama sitcom almost, but very good, very very artsy, very poetic, very deep literature written first in Mandarin. But if you are into Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, the dramas, this is a really good one to go to. Dream of the Red Chamber by Cao Shuiqing.
Sounds great. I might have to branch out a little bit and read it. This next recommendation I have is, I don't know if I can recommend something I have not read, but I'm recommending it to you listeners because I need people to talk about it with after I read it, and it's on my list for this year. It's the Poppy War trilogy, and I think it's important because I not only see it everywhere, but it's also written by the same author as Babel, the R.F. Kwang. And it's where they got their start, I believe. I could be wrong there, but I'll know more when I read them. But I'm recommending it because I want people to talk about it with, and I think it from everything I see that it's going to be an immediate favorite.
So the next book I have for us is more of like an actual fantasy um, called The Monkey. You guys might have heard it called The Monkey King or Journey to the West. I think there's been a couple TV show adaptations. Mandarin is called Shioji, where there's this one's more close. It's not exactly, but it's closer to a high fantasy with talking creatures, dragons, all these other things. And something cool was it was referenced in Grimm when they're talking about like the staff. They said it could be Sun Wukong, the Monkey King's staff, and I thought that was really cool that it got referenced. And I had read this book first. I read this book as part of my Mandarin class. I had to read the Chinese version in undergrad, and it's a very fun story, lots of cool creatures and things and culture in it, and I would highly recommend it. And you can see it's not super thick, so it's very doable. I highly recommend it.
I've got to read it. And for our listeners, they might not know how much we love Grimm, the TV show.
Oh, I love Grimm.
Stormlight Archive is lightly inspired or heavily inspired by
Well,
Korean culture.
yeah, but the Alethi Brandon Sanderson wrote to be the Mongols, like the warriors that took over everyone, and then didn't really know how to govern all these places they take over.
Gotcha. Yes, but Brandon Sanderson lived in Korea, South Korea, for a couple years, and a lot of his story thinking process, the seed started there when he was living amongst the South Koreans, and he says that he imagines a lot of the characters in Stormlight to be kind of Asian descent ish. I know they're Rosharans, but inspired by something.
Yeah, inspired. There's definitely Asian inspiration in the Stormlight Archive.
But the third recommendation I have is another series I haven't read but really want to and hear awesome things about and need people to talk about it with, and that is the Jade City trilogy. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
The Jade City by Fonda Lee. Just a one-sentence premise. On the island of Kikon, powerful families control a rare substance called jade, which gives warriors enhanced strength, speed, and perception, if they can handle it. So two rival families fight for control. Sounds cool.
Does sound cool.
So the Jade City trilogy is one that's Asian inspired that I want to read.
That is cool. I'll have to put that one on my list. All right, my last one that I'll recommend is actually a Brandon Sanderson book. This is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. This was my favorite of all of the secret projects that came out. It's kind of like a Freaky Friday in an Asian inspired world. I think it was Korean that Brandon Sanderson said was kind of more of the inspiration for this one, but I could be wrong. And it was really funny, in my opinion. It did have some action, different kind of action than we're used to seeing in Brandon's books, but it was funny. It had a good pacing to it. The characters were likable and it had a really good ending. I think if you grew up liking Freaky Friday and if you grew up liking any kind of Asian culture, had any interest in that, this is a really good book to get into. It's very light. It's an easy read. It goes with the flow well, and you get to dip your toes in some Asian culture a little bit, as well as get a good fantasy story.
Sounds like a fun one. I actually haven't read that Secret Project yet.
Dude, that's the best. That's the best one. Everyone talks about Tress, and I didn't think Tress was that amazing. I thought Yumi and the Nightmare Painter was the best.
Okay, our next segment, one we've never done before, and when we get better at our editing skills, maybe we can put this up on the screen for everybody to see. But we have created a Asian food bracket, Sweet 16. We're gonna go through these, the first round here, one at a time. And we're going to come to a consensus on which one's the best. Okay. The first one is sushi versus Thai curry.
That's hard, but you gotta go. I gotta go sushi on this.
You have to go sushi.
But I do love Thai curry, but sushi's just so iconic.
Next one, dumplings versus bao.
That's hard.
I think I'm leaning dumplings.
I'm leaning dumplings too. A lot of people don't know what bao is, and I think dumplings are just like a little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit. I do love a good sausage bao, big sausage meatball in the middle. Are you hungry?
Bao is so good. I love Asian food so much.
Okay, ramen versus pho. So we've
Ramen.
got a Japanese soup and a Vietnamese soup.
This might be a hot take, but I definitely prefer ramen out of the 2.
I agree. Amanda took me to a pho place once. Not great, but she said it wasn't. There's better ones.
Pho is really good. I guess to me, pho just seems a little bit too like herbal, too medicine-y almost.
It's like a tea.
Yeah, where ramen seems more like soupy.
Okay, pad see ew and chow mein.
Chow mein.
I love pad see ew's noodles though, like just the thick noodles. But I agree with you. The chow mein is delicious. Next one here, pad thai versus bulgogi.
Pad thai.
Pad thai. I do like the flavor of bulgogi. Amanda makes a great bulgogi meatball that we put over rice with some spicy mayo on top. Is delicious. But pad thai is it's good for everybody. Everybody loves it.
I love pad thai.
It's such a gringo dish to order. Okay, butter chicken versus Korean barbecue.
I'll do Korean barbecue. Butter chicken is really good though.
Okay, dim sum or hot pot.
Hot pot.
I have not been able to partake in either.
You haven't? I'll take you to hot pot.
Next one, I've got adobo versus orange chicken.
That is a hard one. This might be a hot take, but I'm gonna go adobo.
I would say orange chicken because I love it, but I also haven't. I don't know if I've had much adobo at all.
Yeah, when one of my neighbors, they were Filipino and they made it for me. It was so good.
I'm gonna trust your expertise here and go adobo. Okay, now we're to the Elite Eight. We've got adobo versus hot pot.
I'm gonna go adobo just because I feel hot pot is too broad.
Okay, just get it out of here because it's too controversial. Adobo. So what's good in hot pot? Like, what do you put in hot pot?
I love imitation crab in hot pot, any meats, love tofu in it,
What about
notes
real crab?
mushrooms. Real crab is good in it too. Dumplings are actually really good in a hot pot.
Okay, pad thai versus Korean barbecue.
I'm gonna go pad thai again, just because I feel like the Korean barbecue is a little too broad.
Too broad. That was my bad. The Korean barbecue and the hot pot are too broad.
Putting those up against each other though, that'd be tough.
That'd be tough. All right, we've got ramen or chow mein.
Ramen.
I agree. I've had you been to Japan?
I haven't yet.
I like you go to Japan, you go into a little ramen place and where was it? Ichiran? I think it was Ichiran or Ichiban or something like that. And it's a chain of ramen restaurants. You go and you just sit in these little cubicles just by yourself and your friends and family are like at other cubicles. You fill out your little sheet of what you want in your ramen and you slide it through this little window and then they slide your dish back to you. Okay. The last one in the Elite Eight is sushi versus dumplings.
I'm gonna go sushi.
You have to go sushi. I mean, really though. Okay, the final four: sushi versus ramen. I think I have to go sushi again, even though ramen's just so good.
I think I gotta go sushi as well.
Sushi. The Japanese, man, they really figured out the food situation. Pad thai versus adobo. I haven't had adobo. You got to help me.
This might be a real hot take, but I think adobo is just like, I feel like pad thai is just too mainstream, where like adobo is more. I gotta go adobo. I think it's just a little bit better.
You just don't want your Filipino friends to beat you up.
I don't live next to them anymore.
Sushi or adobo? Is it an easy?
Here's the thing. I feel like I say sushi and that's just like too mainstream. But if I say adobo, I think I gave like 3 or 4 hot takes in a row with it.
Sushi was the number 1 seed.
You gave them seeds. That's hilarious. We might have to put this in the Instagram poll.
I don't know if anyone knows adobo as well as sushi.
I'm gonna go sushi just because like that's what I go looking for to eat.
Yeah, I've been to all you can eat sushi places with you. I know how you feel.
When I got into dental school, I had 6 rolls of sushi for each school that I got into.
Well, what a way to celebrate. Well, now we have to go eat adobo together because I need to know.
Yeah, next time we're in the same state, we'll find an adobo place.
I mean, top 2 in the Asian food bracket, adobo, that's pretty elite company. Okay, great.
I would love to post our bracket though and see what the people think.
I'll have to make this bracket a little prettier. Here's
Get chat to make it for us.
here's what we got.
I have to say, do you agree with Mason's bracket?
That's fun. Sushi over adobo. Well, Mason, that brings us to what I was calling our Watchtower review of Shang-Chi, but you have corrected me and said it is Shang-Chi.
It is Shang-Chi.
Very good. What does Shang-Chi mean in Mandarin?
I actually have no idea which characters are.
It's gotta mean something.
But which is funny that you bring up his name as we've been talking about language all day. One of the lines that the Shang-Chi's dad says is that names are sacred and the meanings of them are important. And most Mandarin names aren't just like when my parents named me Mason, it wasn't because they're like, oh, it means cutter of stone. And named me for that reason. There's like, oh, we like the way Mason sounds. Where there, they do go for a little bit of sound, but each character has a meaning to it and significance behind it. And so you hear a lot of like May and Mandarin names because that means beautiful, like Mei Li, like beauty.
What about Ty Lee from Avatar?
I don't know her characters.
Yes. So Shang-Chi, released in 2021, that's still during that COVID area, and so theatrical release wasn't an option, right? Or was it?
I remember. I can't remember if I saw it in theaters or not.
I
I think
feel
I
like I
might.
might have.
No, I did see it in theaters. I totally did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did too. Anyway, like you mentioned before, MCU Phase 4. I think of the MCU Phase 4 films, this is probably top 3.
I would, in my opinion, it's the best film of
That's
Phase
all.
4, which might be a hot take, but I'm standing by it.
Why do you say that?
I do think that one, they did a really good job of including Chinese culture within the movie without forcing it on you. I do think the action scenes were very good, and then you get a lot of deep moments too with Shang-Chi, with his mom and the flashbacks, with his father, with his sister, and just a really great film with a lot of great moments, in my opinion.
So, like a one sentence synopsis of Shang-Chi. So, Shang-Chi is pulled back into his past when his father, the leader of the Ten Rings, forces him into a mythical conflict. And you kind of get to the point where you realize that he was trained to basically be a ninja, right? His whole childhood. Do you want to guess how much money this movie made worldwide?
600 million.
You're not far off. 432 million. And it got really strong reviews. Is this a hot take if I say this is a top 5 origin movie in the MCU? Because only people I got above him I've got Iron Man. They kind of muffed the Hulk's origin story a little bit. So you got Iron Man, Thor are my favorites.
I thought
Obviously,
Thor 1 wasn't even a strong origin, though.
yeah, I just love Thor. So Captain America. And then I'm
The
trying to think.
Guardians of the Galaxy Origins was really
There
good.
it is. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy Origins. And then I think this one would be kind of 5.
I know which one gets a lot of praise. I always thought it was a little bit too much praise was Black Panther, which was a super solid, super good movie. I really enjoyed it, but I never thought it was like top 3 movies in the MCU.
I actually enjoyed this movie better than Black Panther.
I do think that I did enjoy this movie better than Black Panther as well, which is probably a hot take, but I thought the action in this was better.
The acting was better in Black Panther. I'll say that. But I liked what was going on in this movie.
I also liked that they had Aquafina in there, and she added a pretty good, like, comical relief in there. I also feel that something I like better about this compared to I'd actually say the movies are pretty even. It just, like, kinda comes down to preferences with things. But something that I liked about this one was real threats, and really, Michael B. Jordan shouldn't be able to take down an entire nation and control it by himself just by some cultural challenge. Like, I get it. It just seems a little bit weak for me is what one man single-handedly overthrew the most technologically advanced nation in the world.
Yes. I think what it came down to for me, liking this movie a little more than Black Panther, even though I think Black Panther is a great movie, is that Shang-Chi himself is very charismatic and relatable until he starts obviously fighting ninja style, which you can't relate to that, but he's pretty grounded. And he has good humor, I thought. And I think that the Aquafina does a good job in showcasing his back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight between the two, Shang-Chi or Black Panther?
Well, if Shang-Chi has the 10 rings and Black Panther has his suit on, I think the 10 rings win. How about you? That'd be a good mythic matchup.
I think without the vibranium and without the rings, Shang-Chi still wins.
Yeah, I mean, yes. If it's man versus man, Shang-Chi wins.
But yeah, I think I'd give it to Shang-Chi. I feel like there's been inconsistencies with the strength of vibranium in the MCU and the strength of the Ten Rings.
Yeah. There's a lot we don't know about the 10 rings.
Yeah. I would say a big critique I have in general for the MCU is inconsistencies in power and strength.
What worked in this movie was the action choreography, though. It was a lot better than a lot of what we've seen in other movies. In Marvel is, it was Jackie Chan's stunt team worked on this movie, and great stunt team, great stunt style. You get Asian inspired fighting choreography, which you don't really get in other stuff. The father son dynamic, really good. And I like how he's the villain. And the end there's just so much going on at the end, though, that it's so much to keep track of. And I liked all of the choreography, like the fight choreography at the end and during the movie, but then at the end, you kind of lose that fighting style and it just becomes like dragons and monsters.
I really liked having a dragon in there.
Yeah,
Add a little bit of fantasy in there. I also love that it was like traditional, like Chinese depicted dragon,
no wings.
no wings. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of after once they 10 rings and the people of Talo decide to team up, that's when I think a lot of the fighting choreography went away and it went to this chaos trying to deal with the Dweller in Darkness.
Yeah, and just like a CGI finale, which wasn't bad. It just turns from like a grounded martial arts feel to just dragons and monsters and CGI, and it was good though. I liked it. Going back to the action, I liked the scaffolding scene.
But yeah,
That was clever. And I mean, Shang-Chi, he's so good at fighting.
yeah, this is a high coordination. Whoever those stunt doubles are, who did an incredible job.
That's fun.
And they made it so like that he was like a skilled fighter, but not overpowered. Where the fighting, even though it was crazy, still seemed in the realm of possible. There wasn't like any like ridiculous scenes where you're just like, oh, that is just way too far out of the realm of possibility.
Did you know that the 10 rings were redesigned from the comics? I mean, you and I don't read a lot of comics much, but did you know they were redesigned from the comics? They were actually rings on your fingers and not armbands.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that something that people have complained about?
I don't know, but I do know there was a redesign, and I don't know if people have complained about it. But after we did our Eternals movie review and we said good things about it, that's like our worst take ever, apparently, according to people that have talked to me about it.
Well, it was a hot take that we liked the movie.
Yeah, I think it's we liked Eternals because we hadn't read the comics.
Yeah, in Protagonist Nation, Carter and I are not really comic book readers. We're totally open to it, but having not read the comic books, love the movie. I haven't heard anything about people complaining about the rings being different.
I think it's because the rings, the redesign's actually cooler than the original idea.
I would agree. I think the armbands would be more intimidating.
The skipping forward to the post-credit scene, the rings are sending a mysterious beacon, and they supposedly tie into the multiverse and stuff, but it's still largely unexplained all these years later.
Yeah, they've been kind of slow. I think it's because their phase 4 was so widely unpopular that they're just all changing gears. And it's like, all right, how do we reconcile this? Because people hate what we're doing.
So what we know about the sequel is that it is officially in development, and it's the same director, and I think obviously Shang-Chi, the actor for it, what's his name? Simu Liu or something else? Is that someone else?
Let me look it up. I don't know how he pronounces his first name, but last name is Leo.
Okay, Simu Liu or something like that. But the movie, the sequel, it was delayed due to MCU reshuffling how they wanted to lay out the rest of their movies and stuff. And I wonder how much of that had to do with COVID or how much of it had to do with Kang the Conqueror being fired or or what. But there's still no release date as of now. And all the fans, us included, were asking, why not? And I think that Marvel really dropped the ball on following this up quick with a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so many years now that people just kind of lose interest, you know? Like I said, it might be a hot take, but I thought this was by far the strongest movie of the Phase 4. I would say that it's top 5 to top 7 best origin stories in the MCU, just depending on honestly, if you like a superhero, you like a superhero, and you're gonna be biased that way no matter what. For example, I thought Civil War by Captain America was just crap. Like, I did not think it was good at all, but a lot of people consider that like a top 3 Marvel movie because they love Captain America and Iron Man so much. But I really enjoyed this movie. I thought this was the best part of Phase 4, and I thought it did a really good job of having realistic but good action scenes, great adaptation with the Chinese culture, and the rings were something that were powerful but not too OP at the same time.
Well, is there anything else you want to say about Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings? Is it called Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings?
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know if And the Ten Rings was the sequel or if it was the first book or first movie.
just that it was very great. I really enjoyed it. Maybe this is a hot take. Protagonist Nation, you have to let me know if I'm making a mistake. But I'm really looking forward to the sequel, and I hope that he is in Avengers Doomsday.
I actually heard that it's confirmed that he's in Doomsday. So they said we'll see him in Doomsday before we see his sequel, but we will be getting a sequel. So that's good. I just hope the MCU cleans it up, man. I hope Doomsday is like what they can just kind of clean it up.
I hope they clean up a lot of things. I don't like leaving stories hanging, and so they gotta clean up something with Eternals too.
Yes.
I know that it wasn't widely accepted, but just do the best you can to create an adaptation that closes out that story if you want it gone, or that integrates it well into the universe.
Yes, please, Eternals. I want that sequel almost even more than Shang-Chi.
It was to see where it was going. Is like, all right, where are you gonna go with all these celestial beings?
The end credit scenes just leave so much unanswered. It's like, if you don't have a sequel planned, stop doing the after credit scenes.
I think that happened with Doctor Strange.
Yeah. If you think we're crazy because we like Shang-Chi so much, so be it. We have also been called crazy and dumb for thinking Eternals was enjoyable.
Not even a great, just enjoyable.
Exactly. Just enjoyable. Anyway. There's our Watchtower review, everyone. Thanks for listening to it.
All right, and that brings us to our next segment, last segment, our Weapon of Wisdom by Carter.
So, as I like to try to do, I chose a quote by R.F. Kwang from Babel, which we reviewed today. And it says, "What was the point of belonging if it required you to betray yourself?" Let that sink in. So I think it cuts right to the novel's emotional core, but more than that, it makes me reflect on a lot of things in my life, like all the times I tried to belong to certain groups or become accepted. And you just, the more you try to become accepted, you almost feel like you're giving up parts of yourself. And although acceptance and becoming part of groups and having friends and adapting is all part of life that's important, I think that just don't go too far where you're betraying yourself by trying to belong. And there's a lot to take in from this quote. Just, I liked it. It spoke to me. And I hope that it could speak to you. And, just the whole idea of identity versus acceptance and just giving into who you are. And that's not to say accept your deficiencies or weaknesses, always be improving and growing. But also, for example, this nerdy podcast that me and Mason have started, it's not something I could have seen myself doing in college or high school because I might have been too embarrassed by all the nerdy stuff I wanted to talk about. And it's been fun to, do this. And we appreciate you being here. So that's my weapon of wisdom, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I'll hand it back over to Mason to give a little bit of a conclusion to this week's episode and send us off.
Thank you, Carter. So today was definitely a fun episode, definitely near and dear to my heart with a awesome Asian theme that we had today. Just to review, we did our book breakdown over Babel by R.F. Kwang. We then did some book recommendations that were Asian inspired in the realm of fantasy or just maybe originally a book from another culture. We each recommended 3 books, and I would highly encourage you to watch that section again to see which books we recommended for you to potentially read. All of them were great. 2 of them we haven't read yet, and Carter will be reading this next year, and we'll see just how good those ones turn out. And after that, we did a nothing to do with reading, but everything to do with Asian culture, a food bracket based on Asian dishes that we like. And sushi ended up winning the bracket. Might be some hot takes in there. We are going to post this bracket to our Instagram and see if people agree with what my tastes in food were. I would never claim to have a sophisticated palate, but I do love food. After that, we did our Watchtower review over Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. We both loved the movie. I think it's the best part of Marvel Phase 4, but maybe that's a hot take, and I would love to hear everyone's feedback on that. And Carter gave us an awesome weapon of wisdom. And that concludes our episode today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the support. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and you can follow our Instagram at the Brotagonists.
Awesome. Thank you. And turn that alert bell on YouTube too, so you can know when we have a new episode out. We do release a new full episode every Monday at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Thank you guys. Have a great week.
See you, protagonists.